Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am featuring this Happy Mail box card that I created to be featured in the Asthma Awareness Hub 2022 on Instagram. This hub took place on May 3rd, since that is the World Asthma Day. I created this card to be featured by Card Nouveau during the hub. But as I already mentioned on Instagram, I was going to showcase this card as soon as the hub finished. Of course, if you haven't seen the hub, definitely hop around on Instagram. There is a lot of inspiration out there. There is always some sort of a link with asthma by everyone. But even though that's the case, these cards are gorgeous, and depending on sentiments that you're using, can be for all year round. So maybe you get inspired by some of the creations. My card was featured by Card Nouveau. I remember that they asked me whether I could create a card for this hub, and I immediately said yes. I had no clue what I was going to make, and they suggested to do something with maybe bubbles or clouds or anything like that. So I took the challenge on and I went for clouds. And there was no doubt in my mind that I was going to create a card for this hub. I was honored to be asked, just because asthma is, well, a disease that is worldwide. And I think that if you think about it, there will be someone you know with this disease. It's a common disease. In my family, when I grew up, my sister and my father struggled due to asthma, and so I remember the puffer that my sister was always grabbing towards whenever she was short of breath or anything like that. It's a chronic lung disease, which actually narrows the airways, and it can cause swelling because of inflammation. So, well, there are of course different gradations, and I definitely think if you know someone, it's really handy to hop along if you haven't done that yet. There was a giveaway, but that is already ended. But there is a lot of information out there about asthma. I think it's really useful if you know someone to just read about it as well. Maybe you can understand things more, or can just anticipate a little bit if they are struggling that day and you're meeting with them or anything like that. I think it's really important that these days about awareness of several sorts come there, and in this crafting community, I love it when people come together and organize something like this. There are other awareness hubs throughout the year, and I each time learn something from them. So I think it's a great purpose to do this for diseases, to make them known, to inform people, but also like the anti-racist hub, for example. These things happen still in the world, and we need to know about them. We don't need to shut up about them. We need to speak up in those cases. But in this case, it's really all about informing. And it can be useful for anyone to know about these diseases that are out there, that are really, really common. So yeah. So in the meantime, while I was sort of trying to picture the hub a bit, I am Englanding like a crazy person. As I said, I wanted to do something with that cloud idea, but I didn't want to just use my favorite cracked pistachio distress ink. Now, key to the ink blending of this card, because I tried it before with these inks and it didn't work, the key here was really to go with a light hand and to adapt depending on the strength of one of the colors. Like the purple one, if you would go too hard, it would be really, really hard to blend into those lighter colors. So soft hand, you can always add more layers if you need to. Then for the sentiment, I took the Love You More stamp set for my favorite things, and I'm just white heat embossing this I love you just the way you are on top of my ink blended background here. And then once that is heat set, I am going to assemble the card. Now there are a lot of pieces. I mostly use the outside the box level up, but to represent those clouds, there is also the outside the box clouds that work perfectly, of course, with the outside the box level up. If you don't have the clouds, you can also cut out clouds in a longer piece and then just make sure that you have those tiny pieces on the edges to add it to the box. You don't necessarily need specifically the box kind of inserts or pop-ups. So I decided to add just a bit more to keep it dreamy, in my opinion. So I just splattered some white splatters all over using some white gouache. And then I decided to use also the Incontree liquid pixie dust. It's something that I have for a while now in my craft room, and all in the beginning when they brought it out, Incontree, I used it a lot. And then all of a sudden I just didn't grab towards it. So I was really happy to realize that, because this way there is also a shimmer all over this card. So it's a really subtle card. And then I'm not talking about the colors, but just the simplicity of the cards on its own. But just these white splatters, then the bling from the liquid pixie dust. I really think it's a lovely way. I didn't want to add too much moisture, because this paper is Transotype perfect coloring paper. It's great for Copics. For ink blending it's a bit harder, but it works. I love doing that on this paper. But it's not that good with water, so I just try to have some splatters without diluting, adding too much moisture. Before assembling my card, I am first just adding a bit more of a crease by using my bone folder here before folding and then adhering everything together. And then we can start assembling. Now there are many ways to assemble a card, and sometimes I forget about the most efficient way, but today I am sort of succeeding in a sufficient way. So first of all, I am helping myself those folds. I'm just going over them to make them a bit more sturdy, and then we can start assembling everything. Now I was searching for the front piece that I was going to use of all of these clouds inserts, and once I decided, I just added the others, going always a little bit higher up on this piece that you can see here. It will be clear just in a bit. So for these pieces, you can adhere them to the background in several ways. You can add them like I'm doing now, or you can add the flap in front, but I'm going to add another piece behind to cover all of those tiny handles, I don't know. I'm going to cover that, so that's why I added it behind the background. So here I am lining up all of the parts for my background, and I wanted to play a bit with height. Not everything needed to be right on the bottom of my card, and then I'm making sure that there is a bit of spacing in between the several layers here. And I'm adding everything on one side. Now the gorgeous thing about this is that you can hold everything flat and then just adhere everything at once to the other side of the box, and that is a really handy way. Just the only thing you need to take care of is to align them straight. So just try to have all of the layers horizontally. If you have them in some sort of a stair, it's not a stair, but well, you know what I mean. Just make sure it's horizontal, and that is actually already the box. Now you can do several things, but as I said, I am going to cover the back as well with just a piece of white paper. You can write something down here. I just love covering up those pieces where you adhere the box with. And so I'm just using some Scor Tape. I'm always using Scor Tape whenever I can when assembling a box. For me, it's one of those most sturdy adhesives. Liquid glue would take some time to dry, and I don't have that when creating a box. And then other tapes will work, but they are less strong in my opinion, so that's why I use Scor Tape. And then I had my box. And personally, you can stop here. I didn't know what I was going to do. I decided to try to add a few more clouds, and therefore I took these cloudy with a chance of rain from my favorite things, and in the end I ended up using 3 of them, not the big one in the front and such. I also tried to add hugs as a word on the first layer of the clouds, but that just didn't work with the alphabet that I chose. Maybe it didn't work with any alphabet, but I didn't try further. And then I thought, well, I can leave it as is, or I can try to find a fun image, subtle, tiny, to add a bit on top of the rest of the card. So I decided to take these birds from the Let Your Hair Down stamp set from my favorite things. And then I wanted to find a color to color them in with. So I took my hex chart here and I wiggled with my background over the hex chart to see which colors would sort of represent the blend that I have at a certain point on my card. And I came up with some markers, not a lot. I tried them out on a piece of paper, and this might be a bit strange that I'm showcasing this, how I came to this combination, but it's just because some of you are really enthusiastic about the Copics and the combinations. They are always listed on my blog post, no secrets here, so definitely check that out over there if you need to for any card. I always list them. But some of you asked the process, and actually that's sort of how I tackle things. Now in this case I already had a background that I wanted to mimic. Normally I just watch my hex chart and I just put some things together. I also of course have some specific combinations that I grab towards because they work. So that is a way, and if I want to create something different, I just look at the chart. I try to find a marker that is a bit darker. I try to find a mid-tone and then a lighter color. In this case, I'm really going from red to yellow, which was kind of fun, and I'm really glad how this combo turned out. I think it's a lovely combination. So I hope you like that too, of course. I stamped the images out using dark chocolate. I didn't want them to be too harsh. I don't have anything black on my card, so that's always a good reason for me to try to find another ink to stamp my images out with. And dark chocolate from Gina K Designs Amalgam ink is a really lovely brown color. It's dark enough, but at the same time it's a bit softer than black. So I tried to do the blend and it worked. So I'm just going to show you these 3 birds, how I colored them, and then the rest I colored without filming because that would be just a bit too much repetition. So I just worked my way up through all of the markers. I added 2 layers every time. Normally with this size 1 layer can be enough as well, but these are several color families that have to get the transition in between, so therefore a second layer really helped me to get that transition going. So once I colored 6 of them, I thought that was going to be enough, and so I took the matching dies and cut all of them out. And then I could try whether it worked or not on my card. Now I have to admit, since it is with the same colors, you're almost always certain that it will work. So I just had to figure out where I was going to place all of them, and I just played a bit with them. I wanted to have some on each layer of my card. I didn't want to cover one with another one, so that's just a process that I did. And something that can be really handy is to use your reverse tweezers if you have to keep those images in place, as sometimes you're only adhering them with the bottom part of the image. So this way you can keep it for a bit there in place until it sort of dries. It's a really handy tool. And every time I'm creating a box, which I don't do often, but every time I'm creating one, I'm thinking I need another reverse tweezers. Just because that way you have more options to keep things on there. And then my final one, I decided to just have a bit of fun and add it in the corner on the back of my card. So whenever there is a sentiment in the back, you will see the six in total. So that is actually my card that I created. Again, it was for the Asthma Awareness Hub. I hope that you will check it out, that you will inform yourself about this chronic lung disease, because a lot of people have it, and I really was honored to be on the hub. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you will check out the hub and get inspired. Thank you so much for stopping by and taking the time. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and of course that you like the end result, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!